Hi guys, so today I'm going to be doing a book review video. They're kind of Halloween-y kind of books. Now the first book I don't have anymore. I gave it to somebody to read. And the first book I'm going to talk about is called James Patterson by James Patterson. It's like his kind of like life story-ish. I really liked it. I wanted to read that book just because James Patterson, he's not like a horror writer, but he's like a thriller writer. And sometimes thrillers are kind of scary. So that's why that was like my, like, sense behind putting this book in this book review video. And the James Patterson book I really liked because it wasn't like, okay, I was born on this date and this is what happened on this date and blah, 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 like throughout the whole book. It was mostly like little short stories. It kind of was like, I don't know if it was the last book review video or book review video before the last one I did, where I read Ree Drummond's book, her Pioneer Frontier book, or Frontier Follies, whatever it was called. It was kind of like that, where each chapter or each little part in his book were made up of little stories. And I thought they were really funny. He talks about how, like, he doesn't really, he likes Stephen King's books, but for some reason he was dissing Stephen King in the book because of stuff that happened in their, like, timeline, I guess you could say. There was, like, blurbs about, like, his grandmother, and his grandmother thought his grandfather was still alive even though he was dead for 10 years, and going to Catholic schools and writing his first book and how long it took for him to get his book published and everything like that. And the book was just really, it had funny moments in it. There was some serious moments, but there was some funny moments. It was like a 10 out of 10. I highly recommend reading it because it was just that good. It wasn't like everybody else's biographies that you can just pick up and read. So this book is A Cat in the Stacks mystery. It's called The Silence of the Library. It's by Miranda James. This is what it looks like. And this is the one series, or one of the series that on a rare occasion has a male protagonist. And he has this cat. He works at the library. And they're trying to get this author, or this, they're doing this thing at the library, and they're trying to get this author who people thought was dead because she's really old to come to the library to do a book signing. It's kind of like she wrote, like, Nancy Drew-esque type of books. It was like the girl detective books before Nancy Drew showed up, or was about the same time as Nancy Drew showed up. And here, this woman who was like the head of this fan club, she ends up dying. And I don't know what his name is. Charlie, he has to figure out what happened and why before they have this big event at the library. Because now they think, like, this event is cursed because of these things keep happening. And he helps solve the mystery with his cat. It's kind of like the Cat Who books with Quill, Qwill, except he only has one cat. The one thing I will say about these books is I like these books, but the one thing that is annoying is that every time there's a new character introduced in the book, they have to bring up how big his cat is. And his cat is this fat Maine Coon kind of cat. And Maine Coons get really big, and sometimes they are, like, mistaken for, like, bigger cats in the wild. And they always bring it up, and I'm like, okay, like, we don't have to bring it up, like, every chapter when you introduce a new character. And that was basically it. There was, like, a twist in the book, which I thought was, like, really, like, wow. Because I was like, come on, like, let's get to the mystery. Like, they weren't really, like, talking about the mystery at all. And then when they finally started talking about it towards the end of the book, and they figured out what happened and who did it and what, it was like a twist in it, which I didn't even see coming. Like, usually in mystery books you can see it like halfway through the book and you just want to get through the book, but I thought this mystery was really good. So this book this was the first book I think I read for this set of stories. And let me tell you now, I got this book at Target. And this was like a few months ago, maybe last year. And I was like, well, I'll read something different, because I want to like read different genres. And this book, it wasn't good. And it was a thick book. Like I'm trying to see how many pages it had. It had like 418 pages in it. And I read this book because I thought, well, it'll be like a Halloween-y book because it says it has puppets in it. And this is called In the Lives of Puppets. It's by T.J. Klune. This is what it looks like. And basically what they're trying to portray this as is like a different version of Pinocchio. Because it's a weird book to begin with. Like this is what I hate about this book is the prologue. It says that this man left the city and he lives in the woods, and he's basically like a robot. All of these people that are in this book are like robots. And here these humans come, and they come at the right time because he says that he's really lonely. He doesn't know why. And they give him their baby, a human baby. And he ends up raising this baby. But then in the book, it changes where this, I think he's a teenager. He's a teenager now. The human teenager, he finds out something about that story. And I'm like, well, then why did you have to write the prologue to this story? Because basically, the prologue was just a big lie, basically. And this book was just really weird. He finds these parts. It's basically, I guess, like a world where there's no more humans in it except for this teenager who's a human. And he builds this robot back up. And this robot was a robot that apparently, like, was a killing robot. And this robot, he doesn't know anything about his memory, anything like that. And so they name him something else, and then his father tells them, like, hey, there's this basically, his father's, like, dying, and he has this video on this one robot's, memory about, like, the whole story of what happened and why his dad had to leave this place and come to this place. And it's just a weird story. It's really confusing. Basically, I guess, like, the teenagers, like, Geppetto making this robot, and there's a talk about a blue fairy, and you have to find this blue fairy to, like, make everything better. And he has friends. His one friend is a vacuum robot, and his other friend is a nurse ratchet robot. It was just, like, there were certain parts that remind me of Pinocchio, like a modern day Pinocchio, and other parts I was just like, come on. And then what happens, there's a part in the book where I'm just like, okay, like, this robot is gonna do this, or this teenager person is gonna do this. And it turned out I was right. Like I was waiting for it to happen in this book, because I'm like, come on, like, this is what you're implying. And it's 400 pages, and it's just like, I really didn't enjoy it. The chapters were kind of short in it, but it was just like, oh my gosh, like, can we get on with the story? You know what I mean? It was just, it felt more like Wizard of Oz, like a retelling of Wizard of Oz, than it felt like Pinocchio to me. Like, I don't know why they thought it was Pinocchio, because the robot doesn't turn into, like, a real person or anything. But it was just a weird book. Like, I just didn't understand, like, when the prologue was a lie. Like, okay, but this doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean? It was just a book where, like, it didn't make any sense what was going on in the book and why they had to do certain things when they came back to this place, it wasn't the same. It was just weird. And they never explained, like, why. It was basically like a book where it was like the humans made robots and then the robots, like, turned sentient and turned against the humans and killed them all. That was basically, like, the whole part of the storyline, basically. But it was just annoying. I had to move on to a different book. A more annoying book was this book. This was called Masters of Death, and it was by Olivie. I don't know how you say their first name. Blake. This is what it looks like. Now, this book was a long book. Some chapters were long in it, some were short. It was basically around, like, the 400-page mark in this book. This book was about the godson of death. And it was about something in this book, and this is what annoys me, is that, okay, they have to play this game, and it's called The Game. And it's where if you beat death in this game, he gives you a gift of whatever you want. Whether it's mortality, whether it's, I don't know, like, money or whatever, like, that's what you have to do. But obviously, if you're playing death and you want something, there's going to be a second side to that gift. And basically, I guess this man played death or something, I don't know, and he gave him his son to raise because his wife was sick and he got sick. And that's basically what the book was about. And what happened is now, he's like a medium, but he's not really a medium. And there's these creatures in this book, like, they're in a little group. There's a vampire. There's the vampire woman. She has a problem with a ghost, and she wants the ghost out of this house because she's a realtor. She's selling it, and she goes to the death's god's son. I forget what his name is. Fox. And basically they have to play this game. And nobody wants to play this game, and it's just, they never explain what this game is about. And he has to face his godfather in it. And he's like, that's going to be hard because death always wins, basically, because he cheats. And they never explain what this game's about. They never explain the rules of this game. It's basically stuff that happens in the past, and they're, like, trying to confront, I guess, what happened in the past or fix it or something like that. I don't know. And it's just a weird book. It's just a weird book because there's the angels in it, and God and Lucifer are still working together, even though, like, we know, like, Lucifer got banished, so it was before that. And the angels have to work until, like, their debt is paid or something. Like, whatever they did, it's based on, like, these, I don't know, like, demerits, I guess. And then if they do good things, or they have to stay on Earth for however long, and then they can come back to heaven or wherever. But it's like, it had angels in it, it had God in it, it had, you know, death in it, like the Grim Reaper guy. It had, like, the Greek gods in it, which was weird, because I'm like, well, then why is you'd have death when you have Hades in it? Like, it was just weird. And that was just the most annoying thing, was, like, they said, oh, you have to play the game, you have to play the game, you have to defeat death, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. And then the other thing that was weird was that Fox, the godson of death, was human, but he was the same age for, like, however long, like, since, like, the 18th century or something like that. And I'm like, well, then how could he still be human? I didn't get that. And then, of course, like, at the end of the book, you know, like, the vampire woman, the vampire woman ends up being with this ghost, and Fox ends up being with this man that he's known like throughout time and stuff like that. It was just a weird book. Like I mean, it was kind of good, but the one annoying thing is that they never told you what this game was and how to play this game. Like they just kept saying it was the game and death cheats and you have to win against death and blah blah blah. It was just a weird book. So this book I've had for a long time. It's a mystery book. It's the first in a series. It's called Assaulted Caramel. It's an Amish candy shop mystery. It's by Amanda Flower. This is what it looks like. And it's about this woman who her family, I forget, I think it was her dad's family. They're Amish. And when he was old enough, he left. He didn't want to be Amish. And basically, she still comes back to see her grandparents. Her grandparents are Amish. And she decides to come back to this town because stuff's going on with her grandfather. Her grandfather's sick. And what happens is there's this realtor man who wants to buy everybody out on this block or this street so he can build, whatever he wants on this stuff. And he ends up dying. He's really mean and he ends up dying. And the main character's grandparents' candy shop. They own this candy shop. They make candies at this candy shop. And she's like a chocolatier. She works for like the highest grade chocolatier, this French man. And he's going to retire. And she's worried that she's worried because this council is gonna pick who's gonna replace him. And it's between her and I think some other man, basically. And what ends up happening is she's worried about her grandfather. Her grandparents are suspected of killing this man. And she's trying to go on the hunt to figure out who did this to this man and why. And she's worried about her grandfather because her grandfather's sick. He has these heart problems and stuff like that. And she's worried about her job. She's worried about this man that she likes, that they're in a secret relationship because he's part of this council that picks who ends up being together or who ends up being the next like head chocolatier man. It was really good. And of course, like it was the first book in the series, so it was setting up everything that went on. And then there's a surprise ending at the end. So this book, I'm going to keep because I really liked it. Now, I got this book because Kara Ashely, she said this book was just okay. And it's called The Dead Romantics. It's by Ashely Poston. That's what it looks like. I really liked it. It's about this woman who ghostwrites for this author. And she ends up going to this publishing house where she has to tell this new publisher man that she can't write this next book for this person. And this man supposedly doesn't know that she ghostwrites for this author. She thinks that this person is just like, this woman is just going to tell the author this. And basically she has to write a book about love. The ending has to be like a loving ending because everybody's saying like romance is dead and blah 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 blah. So they said you have to write a romantic ending, and she can't because she had a love and they broke up and she can't. That's why she can't write an ending. And what happens in this book is that her parents own a funeral home and her dad ends up dying. And she goes back home to the small little town and she sees ghosts. Her and her dad used to see ghosts. And it doesn't say why they see ghosts. It doesn't say if it's because they live in a funeral home or whatever. And basically something happened to her with these ghosts. And it made her leave the town. People thought she was a freak. People started calling her like Wednesday Addams, that kind of stuff. And something happened, like I said, where this ghost wanted to help her figure out what happened to him. And that's when everything like broke apart for her, and then she left and she had been into this town for like 10 years. And her dad dies, and then she sees the ghost of this editor man. And it's basically like her and this ghost are like helping her grieve, and she's trying to figure out how to get him into the afterlife, and she thinks it's because of the book. She didn't finish the book, and it was just really good. I really liked it. Now the ending was kind of corny because something happened like towards the end of the book where it was her dad's funeral, and then I'm like, oh, the ghost said something. I'm like, oh, this is what's gonna happen. And that's how I kind of figured out. I'm like, oh yeah, I was right. But it was kind of Halloweeny. Like, that was the more Halloweeniest book in this whole bunch of books that I read. But I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. So happy Halloween. And I'll see you guys next time with another video. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.